try to take you through the various regulatory requirements which you all need to comply with. But before we start that, it's my privilege to talk few lines about my company, Global Product Compliance. We started off from 2008, and we are based out in Sweden. And from there onwards, our journey has started, and we moved along with our valuable clients. So wherever our clients went, we went along with them. Just like you have seen the pug of Vodafone, wherever they go, we go with them. So that's how we have made our footprints in various countries. And we have established 8 offices now, for that matter, and we've got 2 laboratories, one in Sweden and one in India, to support those industries that need the chemical testing for their regulatory compliances. We have got 1,500 plus happy clients, and more than 99% of these clients are retained with us. That is a great thing we need to be proud of, because that shows our quality, our support, and our to be with the client each time when they want us, so that they have the business happen in the countries where they want to make it happen. And I just mentioned about this, but if I talk about the substances we are handling, the chemical portfolio, it's around 15,000 plus. And this accounts to various type of registrations, notifications, and taking the lead in some of the substances in various countries where regulatory requirements are already in place for business to happen. Of course, many times, in these countries require CLP classifications, and also they require a safety data sheets of that country-specific format. And equally, there is a need for an extended SDS, what we call it ESDS, for those who have done the registration within the European region. We are proud to say we have got 750 plus substances, and we act as a lead registrant for those commodity. And we are managing a large number of consortium management for that matter. So when we do this, it's basically a client and company interaction. We also want the industries and our clients to grow, but keeping all the things which need to be confidential. So we do have a platform. It's an automated supply chain communication portal, which will connect between you and your buyer and those buyers who want your product lines. So, and the only media is we support them to reach out to each other. So the manufacturers can sell the compliant product to their buyers in the country of their interest. And they need not to hunt for anybody that time when the order is already coming to them. So this we can help you with, and this is something we are proud of. And to do all these works, we do require a team. And we are 100 plus people, professionals in the same field, and of which 25% are doctorates, and the remaining 75% includes mostly from the master's degree. And we have those in the fields of chemistry, biochemistry, microbiology, and including some of the fields that requires the master MBAs. And these 2 things are repeated. It came in the first slide. I'm sorry for that. So with this expertise, with this clientele contacts, what is arena we are into? We serve all the sectors mentioned out here, starting with agrochemical, biocides and disinfectants, chemicals, cosmetics, food and contact materials, fertilizers, biostimulants, plant protection products. You have seen a logo out there, Oxylife. That's our sister concern company, 100% owned by GPC Group. And they are specialized in the field of plant protection products, biocides, and agrochemical related regulatory compliances. And they too serve across the globe. For the Indian manufacturers who want to export to the other countries, so we try to help you with those regulatory requirements of that country. And equally, some of you may be importing some key ingredients for that, which may need to go for the CIBRC, the Indian regulation for the biocides and pesticides. So we support them there as well. And on the chemicals, we are the lead, and we'll take you through all these chemical regulations in various countries. You see some of which are listed out here. To start with is the Indian Chemical Safety Management Rules, and then is the European REACH, the Korea REACH, the Eurasia REACH, Turkey REACH, and then you have the UK now post-Brexit, the Taiwan regulations, Vietnam chemical regulations. You see AICS there, there's the Australian chemical regulations, and also now we are having regulations in the North and South America. So the world is not settling down. I mean, each of the countries are coming up with their own regular requirements, and that's the need where either we understand the importance of these things. We Indians also need to raise our knowledge. We need to see our resources also get in line with the requirements that come up globally, and therefore in these countries wherever our industry, Indian industry in particular, having a business, we are with them to help them comply with the requirements. And we also do one more thing complementary: we raise their resources knowledge so that they become self-reliant. And coming to the topic of the day, that's the stage where Sri Ravi Raghavan left all us, and we will talk about the fifth draft, the Indian draft for the regulations. There are some couple of segments in that, which includes the notification, what will happen to the intermediate products, what are the priority substances, what is registration, who need to register that, what are the challenges with the current draft. Because we have been interacting with the associations for a long time with all the policymakers, so we have made a lot of inputs to them, and some of them are the inputs which came from our stakeholders directly. And we'll tell you what is the way forward for the companies. So the association of GPC with the ICMSR is not started as on yesterday. We started way back in 2010. So from then, GPC was known as Sustainability Support Services, SSS. From that time onwards, we are helping the industries and the Indian policymakers to know what are the regulations happening within Europe, and whether we should try to make a roadmap for the national chemical policy in India. So that started in 2010, and from 2011 to 18, a long time period where time and again we have been interacting and giving our inputs to the authorities as and when they were requesting for us, and many times voluntary from our side. This has helped the CII and GPC come together and to make a proposal that can become the national chemical policy subsequently. And in May 2019, we, as including CII, were the only non-governmental associations included within the Ministry of Commerce to finalize on the draft. Finally, the draft which we shared with the authorities was implemented, and now we see various changes happening to that, and the fifth draft is finally in place. Just to give an update of what next, there is some discussion happening at the higher levels, and we strongly feel that by 2022, at least this year, the rule is going to come into force. So what is that the rule is all about? Here again, the rule is to take care and safeguard the environment and to improve upon the health and quality of the people who are living in this Mother Earth. So they've taken the key topics from the Environmental Protection Act of 1986, but they've also included two more rules which already is prevailing in our country, and that rule is related to the manufacture, storage and import of hazardous chemical rules of 1989, and the second rule of chemical accident, that is rule of 1996. So these two rules are also included within this draft of Indian Chemical Safety Management Rule. So what will happen after this rule comes into force? Once these rules come into force, if you see out here this chapter 5, that is the one which we saw in the previous two rules. So when this ICMR is going to be implemented, over a period of time, the previous two rules will be pulled out, and one has to comply with it within this ICMSR implementation. So what is that is within ICMSR? 2-3 important things to be taken care of. That one is the notification, second one is the registration, and third is restriction of substances. So these three are very important terminologies for us to understand. Then if you are complying with this ICMSR, by default it will be having a labeling and packaging requirement for every substances. Safety procedures for manufacturing, handling and import of chemicals need to be addressed, and preparation for an management of chemical accidents. So these are going to be part of the entire ICMSR plan. And all these activities are covered within these 6 chapters of this rule. So ICMSR has 6 chapters, and there are 19 schedules which will give complete detail of what has to be done and when. So what are those 19 schedules? Each one of them is important here. Some of them have become the basis for setting up the stage for the registration, and some of them are the guiding tools for the manufacturers and occupiers what they need to do for they manufacture certain products, and for them to understand whether the products they're manufacturing falls into category of hazardous, or it falls in category of priority list, or it needs to have some threshold quantity to be considered, by virtue of which they may need to prepare a chemical safety report and make the submissions. So then elaboration has been made in each of these chapters, and there's one point here, the schedule number 6, that is restricted or prohibited substances. As on today, there's only one substance by the name phosgene that is being restricted. This means that use of phosgene may be taken out tomorrow, but there is a way to continue with that for a couple of years through a process of authorization. And that will be an active list. Likewise, the schedule 2, that is the list of priority substances, it's a very dynamic list. With every notification happening, this schedule 2 also may get updated. So each of us need to keep an eye on the schedule 2 list as well, along with the chapter 6, which speaks about the restricted and the prohibited substances. So what is the scope of the ICMSR? The scope says that, it understands only one language, that is substance. So the substance can be a pure substance, it can be some of the mixtures, or it can be some articles. So, and all those chemical substances need to be notified. But there are some exclusions as well, and they need not to meet the requirements of ICMSR. And that are the foods and foods-like stuff materials, the substances listed in Schedule 4, then waste and substances for re-exporting. Those which are in the customs already and which will be re-exported, those need not to comply with the ICMSR regulation as on today. Now, as you know, when rule comes in, somebody need to implement it, somebody need to control it, somebody need to see that things are in place. So who does that? In India, it will be the Indian National Chemical Agency, authority, who will be taking care of the entire system to be followed. And to support the Indian Chemical National Authority, we have got a steering committee which is formed, comprising of 16 officials, and they will be having two body to support against them, that is a risk assessment committee comprising of 8 experts, and then a scientific committee comprising of almost 10 experts. If you look at the bottom line of this particular slide, screen, there is a chemical regulatory division as well. It's a full established department they're trying to carve out, which will have people from all the sectors, and including the chemical, the toxicological. So there are the socio-economic units, the techno-legal units, the what we call it as the packaging and labeling units, and also a techno-legal units. So because there may be certain things which would be confidential to you, which you would not like to disclose during the stage of your registrations. So for such things to be considered, not to be considered, the departments within this chemical regulatory division is going to play a major role in that. So knowing the structure, now who is who, how it is placed for me. Now if you are an Indian manufacturer, if you are an Indian importer, you need to comply with the ICMSR once the rule comes into force. But then you may say, but there are some overseas manufacturers, they are also exporting it to India. How they will comply with the regulations? For them to comply with the regulations, they can appoint an authorized legal representative in India who can do who can meet the obligations of ICMSR on their behalf. Now, once these three is being done, there will be other set of people who says that why should I not do it? The downstream users. So I am a manufacturer, I supply it to you, you may give it down the line. So the down the line people also will ask you, is your product supplies made to me compliant with the regulation or not? So from each and everyone within the supply chain, there is going to be a consideration about this compliance on the ICMSR part for each substances. So for the overseas people, they need to appoint an authorized representative, and only then they can do their registration obligation within India. But sometimes even their importers can do it. If your overseas manufacturer has an office in India established, they can still go ahead and then do the notification on their behalf. And this is something similar like what we have in the Europe, the OR, and the same we have in Korea. So in India, it will be called as the authorized representative in place of only representative. This is a very important slide. I mean, you need to focus out here. If you look from outside, things come into India, there may be one importer, there may be two importers, there may be four importers. Each of these importers may be giving it down the line. So things are getting into the system. So they may be downstream user 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on. So in this case, in India, if you are the importer 1 and 2, if your overseas guy is not doing the obligation, is not meeting the obligation, we need to do the obligation and then get the stuff into the country and then do the business down there. But in case this overseas manufacturer appoints only representative, then entire obligation is taken care by the authorized representative for the imports you make from that particular overseas supplier. So it's a reversing as well. You also need to tell your overseas suppliers that, guy, come on guys, now you need to also try to take some responsibilities, try to do your registration by yourself as well, just like we all did for the European market. So the two major things, the notification and the registrations, what are the basic things in that? Each and every substance need to be notified. There is no escape route for that. And to do this notification, there is a window period of 6 months, and that's called as initial notification period. All those substances which will be notified in that window period will be called as an existing chemical substance. All those which will be done after the closure of that window period, if not registered or notified earlier, would be called as a new chemical substance. And once the substance is getting notified, there is an obligation again for submitting an annual report. This annual report needs to be submitted before 1st of March the next calendar year. So for this year's my entire business, the volumes I need to calculate for the substance I am placing in Indian market. By next year, 28th of February or 29th of February, I need to submit my annual reporting to the authorities. So who all need to take care of that? It is the Indian manufacturers, Indian importers, and the authorized representative who is acting on behalf of the overseas client. Now for the second part of the registration part. All substances need not to be registered. Substances which are only listed in Schedule 2, also called as the priority substances, need to be registered. So there are, it's basically things made simple for us. And if I'm not mistaken, there are around 748 or 750 substances in the priority list 2 which need to go for this registration work. And these registered substances also need to go for an annual reporting. This list, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be an active list. So one need to keep a watch on that list. So next question is, when to do this? What are the timeline to do this? So say that today the rule comes into force. So from today onwards, you get 12 months of gestation period to prepare yourself. When I'm saying this, any delays happening for its implementation, in fact, is good for all of us. So we can do our preparation upfront. So post these 12 months, the window for the notification will start. And that window is open for 6 months. All substances notified in that window period will be called as an existing substances, and also it will enter into the what we call registry of substances, registry of chemicals. By virtue of this, India is going to come out with its own chemical inventory list. We have been trying to prepare this list since last many years, but for some reasons it was not been done. So with this notification, India is also going to come out with its own chemical inventory list. And annual reporting need to be submitted. I mentioned that. I also mentioned that it's any substances notified after the notification period, and if not already done by somebody, would be called as an existing chemical substance. But each of us need to do the notification. If you have done, I can't say that X chemical has been done by Y person, so why should I do that? No, that's not allowed. Each one of us need to do our own notification for that matter. So now we understand the timeline. We know that there is a notification procedure involved in that. What is the process? So notifier means either yourself, if you are a manufacturer, if you are an importer, you are a notifier, And if an overseas is doing it, then we people like GPC, we act as an authorized representative, so we will be the notifier. So we make the notification, submission to the chemistry unit. The chemistry unit will go for its preliminary check to confirm whether things are in place or not. If there are certain things not in place or as required by the format, they will get back to the notifier, and we will be given a 30 days time period to ensure that the inputs have been shared with them once again. Say again within 30 days period we are not in a position to give some information, we may seek an extension for additional 30 days. So beyond that, it will not be extended to any notifier who is not giving all information in full sense to the authorities for its consideration. So once that is done, then, and in case we applied for any confidential claims, in that case, there will be what we call it a preliminary check for the confidentiality cases, and if that is eligible, then the confidentiality claims will be released to the notifier, and they will be allowed to keep those things confidential, else not. But most important thing is certain things can't be kept confidential. Now what is that? The classification of the product cannot be kept confidential. The final summaries of that chemical product cannot be kept confidential. But some of the nitty-gritty of the process maybe, and some of the key ingredients which are there, which is not going to affect the classification, can be kept confidential. But there is a process and it involves fees as well. So once that is done, then the substance enters the entry to the register, and then a notification is been issued, and the notifier gets a certificate as well for that. So we now into the process of it. So what all data need to go into that? The data includes basic information of the notifier by themselves, the substance identities, the level of impurities, the volume, the tonnage. The tonnage band is 1 to 10, 10 to 100, 100 to 1000, and above 1000. That's the 5 slabs already pre-identified within this rule. And then we also need to give the substance structural detail in the spectra. So following 5 methods, there are 5 steps given. You can use an NMR, you can use a GC, HPLC, UV, infrared radiation things, and you can try to understand the fingerprinting of your chemical substance, and that need to be part of this particular submissions. The hazard classification is a must. You need to define all the possible uses of your substance. Who all are downstream users, even that need to be included here. And you need to also collect the use of a downstream user and try to cover that in the notification. Else that poor downstream user will have to do his own job just like you did for your product. That means every use also need to be notified. What is the maximum storage you have in the capacity in your premises, and a safety data sheet. This safety data sheet need to be as per GHS version 8. That's the latest version. The global harmonized system for the SDS need to be as per version 8. Now that we know the process, we know what data has to go inside, what are the fees involved. So basically ICMSR has divided into 2 major categories. The medium and small scale are come into one category, and the second one, those are not fitting to that level, is considered to be a large category. The fees again is depend upon the size and the quantity of your tonnage band. I mean, it's 1 to 10 tons, 10 to 100 tons, and so on. So, and these fees need to be paid to the Indian authority while we do for the notification. And there is also a definition of how to identify a company falls into medium size, small size, or a large size. So till now we are talking about the notification, which is covering every product like substance, mixtures, and articles. Now we talk about the intermediates. Like I manufacture something, it is going to be used by somebody to manufacture something else. They too need to do the notification for that matter. But if these intermediate products happens to be listed in the schedule 2, saying it's in the priority list, they need to do more obligations in terms of submitting data to the authorities. But if the tonnage is less than 1000 tons per annum, they can go for a basic registration, wherein the information that has to go into the system is less comparatively. But if the volume of the intermediate is more than 1000 tons per annum, implies they need to go for a full registration, which may include all type of testing required as per the annexes which is going to come out subsequently. All those studies need to be conducted. So we talk about the priority substance, which is the Schedule 2 of India, which is going for the registration. You may see a number up there, 4700. That number as on today is not in the Indian Chemical Safety Management rules. But why that number there? That number is a possible number based upon the UNGHS requirement, which is across the world happening. They identified already 4,700 substances that can become a priority substance as per the definition of what India has. I mean, if a substance is what you call it, persistent, bioaccumulative and toxic, if it is a cancerous, mutagenic and reproductive affecting substance, and if it's endocrine disruptors, if all those things are set in any format, that substance can get entry into the priority list. So as of now, globally, we understand there are 4,700 such commodities. India may slowly update its own Schedule 2 list. So there may be an addition to the list. Now, if a substance falls into the priority list, eligible for a registration, they need to carry out labeling and packaging, and that's a mandatory as per the rule 33 and 34 of the draft. Some priority substance also will find its place into the what we call the Schedule 10, 11 and 12. So there is a link between all those substances mentioned within the schedules. I think we showed that in the previous slides. So after understanding the notification part, now we'll go for the understanding how the registration process works. All substance in Schedule 2 only need to be registered. This we all should keep into mind. But notification is mandatory for everybody, irrespective of you are manufacturing a normal chemical, irrespective of you are saying I will comply with the pharma product compliances, irrespective of saying I am going to comply with the pesticide regulation or I am following the CA/BRC concept. Why should I do this? No. Any product placed in the Indian market, whether it is complying with any other regulation for that matter, still need to do the notification. On the registration part, only those in Schedule 2 need to be registered, nothing beyond that. 18 months is the time period made available to us as on today for carrying out the registration works. It will contain the technical dossiers, it has to have the chemical safety assessment report if the product is having more than 10 tons per annum placement in the Indian market, and there is a fees for registration as well. So a couple of you may be interested to see that, okay, I am the biggest manufacturer of the product in India, I would like to take a lead for the registration. Yes, you can take that lead, but the rest can join you and they can do a joint submission for that matter. And any updates happening to this document of yours, you need to do it proactively the moment you come to know about this within 60 days. But one more point to be taken care of here is for any substance in the priority list, and if you're going to import that commodity, you need to inform the authorities and notify them 15 days in advance of its importment. So the customs and guys will be aware of that you're going to import such a commodity which is actually falling into the Schedule 2 category. So what are the fees involved? Again, here the same system is being followed, but the fees is a bit higher compared to the notification stage. Now, after knowing the basics, what are the challenges that we all will be facing? And just for a comparison, what we tried to do here was, we tried to correlate and equate the things between the European REACH and the Indian Chemical Safety Management rules. So, because you all are well aware about the European REACH side, so that makes things easier for you. In Europe, the pre-registration was free of cost, whereas in India, the notification is going to carry some fees. And in the European case, only the substance details and the tonnage and the company name was required. But in the case of India, you also need to produce and provide them with the spectral analysis, the details of tonnage band, and equally the downstream users' names. There was no annual reporting required in the European REACH, whereas in India, you need to make an annual report submission before the end of March, before the 1st of March, end of February, 1st of March every next calendar year. There is no deadline specification mentioned towards the registration. Whereas in the case of European reach, the registration was based upon the tonnage bands. So this is some of the major changes which can reflect to you compared to European reach and the ICMSR. But saying this and we interacting GPC with all of stakeholders and conducting various webinars across India and outside, and to our understanding as well on the draft, there are certain points which we have made suggestions, and couple of them I try to highlight here for your ready understanding. And we know that there are something which can be reworked upon, and our strong feeling is that when the final version comes out, probably all these things mentioned will be taken care of. And some of the cases are really genuine. For example, only 18 months given for registering the substances in Schedule 2 is too short a time period. I mean, they do require a more time gap to prepare themselves and come to the full requirement as per the formats mentioned for the technical dosage submissions. And there is again, point number 2, if you note it, there is no clarity on what all has to go into what type of tonnage band. I mean, 1 to 10 tons need to have basically an X amount of data. 10 to 100 requires Y amount of data. And more than that requires still different set of data. So that clarity is still not brought out in the draft. So we are strongly of the opinion that the next version, which would be probably the final version, will have those details as well. And we have clearly made our inputs to the authorities for that matter. If you go for the substance specific cases, in ICMSR, there is no clarification on the polymers. Is it the polymer that need to go for the notification, or it's the monomers in the polymer that need to go for the notifications? If I again go down into the legal aspects, the formatting also for the annual report can be still made, more clarity can be given on that. Equally on the appointments of an authorized representative. Who can be an authorized representative? The definition given there is giving some sort of an uncertainty, and there's no good clarity by which people can understand what the definition means. So some of the suggestions we already given to the authorities, and we expect them to make those changes. Now this is what I would like to say here, that I'm pretty sure that all of us would be at least one of these categories. And if you are in this category, I mean, either you are a manufacturer or an importer, or you are into formulations, so you be formulator 1 or formulator 2, we need to get the compliance done. But the downstream users, they need not to carry out that obligation until otherwise their use is different from what has been taken care of by the manufacturer or the importer. So if their use is different, then they have got obligation to notify those to the authorities, also prepare the SDS in that lines. So if you are one amongst them, then you have to do this. And this is a summary which I would like to bring to a kind notice, that if you are complying with the Rule 8, that is, you are obtaining a notification certificate. If you are complying with the Rule 10, that is, the registration certificate is there with you, please have your business continue. There's no issue with that. But for some cases, your registration is suspended for some reasons. You please stop such substance you place in the market, because you'll be penalized for that. Now, once a substance is under suspension for the registration, does not mean you can't revoke it. You can make these subsequent additions, you can give subsequent data to the authorities and get this revocation back. So, and then you can continue business. But the moment or till it is under the suspension, please don't place your product in the Indian market. But always we all like to break the rules, and we say what's going to happen. And suppose I myself have not done the notification, and I supply it to my downstream, because he may be my brother, my cousin, somebody else. That's not allowed. There's a penalty on per day basis. And equally, the downstream user need to ensure that what they buy from the upstream is a compliant product. So everyone in the supply chain is thereby responsible. So request is, whenever the rule comes into force, once the notification window opens, please do the notification in that time period and don't miss that date, and equal the date for the registration. I know we all here would be in any of these categories for sure, and you will be requiring those things mentioned on the left hand side. You may be wanting to understand, what should I do, what should be my approach, can I prepare a roadmap, How should I do my assessment of my inventory? I'm having a gamut of chemicals in my warehouse. Maybe 10,000 or maybe 4,000, something like 2,000, something like 500. But you need to do the assessment of that. Yeah, you may not require the authorized representative as on today, but some of your suppliers who are overseas may ask you, oh, if you are not helping me, who can help us to do the needful? So that also case may come to your notice. So, and then you may have to notify those things. You have to get the registration, prepare a safety data sheet as per the GSS version 8. That's very important. And you need to do all those studies as and when required. We can help you with that. And the previous session when Raghavan Sab was having a talk, there's a question on the BIS. Yes, 52 chemicals as on today are in the mandatory list for BIS certification. Specific deadlines have been set for each of those commodities. So if somebody is importing that or somebody is manufacturing that by themselves, they also need to comply with this certification which is mandatory. I'm not pretty sure what is the penalties been put, but there are some clauses also extended in that case. So we can be your team, your member, your partner to help you see that you sail through a business and we take care of your regulatory requirements. And apart from the Indian chemical safety management rules, if you all want to understand the global scenarios, if you want to know the regulatory intelligence happening across the globe, please visit our website gpcgateway.com. And you will find the entire areas where we are giving our services and much more beyond that. Only thing is you may have to put your registration and you have to carry out your registration to that, log in, and then have a good access to that. I'm through, and if you have any questions, I'm open to take those things. Thank you so much.
So you mentioned in the notification that there is only a requirement for the hazard at classification only. So there will not be any toxicology data which needs to be submitted to the authorities.
When I'm saying this, that does not take away from the responsibility of providing the spectral analysis. So you need to carry out the substance identification to the fullest possible extent. You need to identify the purity as well as the impurities level. So that is the responsibility when you go for the notification part. And if your substance happens to be in the hazardous category, then there are other obligations, like the threshold of the volume you have got that you're storing within your premises. So there are certain other obligations which you need to take care of, but not with the notification. But if your product happens to be in the priority list too, then what you asked to me is absolutely valid. So you have to do a notification, then you have to get the registration as well. But then, I mentioned 18 months for registration. So say today we have the draft in executed. So from today you've got 18 months to do the registration also and also to do the notification. So if that is the case for you, you have to have both the things ready with us.
Based on your interaction, do we have any idea in terms of what portal the government will be using?
We all have gone, high tech these days. We don't go to the bank these days. There is going to be a good dissemination portal, and all the information which we need to submit also would be to the digital format. So we need to upload those things on that. This does not mean as on today that hard copies won't be invited. So still there is a small gap in that. There will be a dissemination of entire events happening, but how, when, and where is still to come out. So we expect that to come out in the final version of it.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
My question is, suppose it's a common intermediate, okay, by several companies. Some company imports it greater than 1,000 metric tons per annum, and my company imports only 50 metric tons per annum. So my requirement of getting that is little bit not stringent. And the one who imports up to 1,000 metric tons, he has to give maximum data.
So if you're seeing that, and if your intermediate is there, what you need to do is you need to carry out the notification now. Okay. And for 50 tons and for 1,000 ton plus, the notification is mandatory. But if you've seen the slide of registration, if you permit to go back, well, it's interesting a question coming up. And in that case, if I am placing 1,000 plus, I become lead registrant. You are also having the same product in your business line, but the volume is say 10 tons. Okay, you can do a joint submission. And for doing a joint submission, the basic requirement is I should know that you and me are in the same boat. I mean, the substance is same. So how do we know it's same substance? It is through this spectral analysis that I can understand that it's you and me in the same product, and therefore we can have the data sharing with you.
Thank you.
when are we expecting this to come into force?
Oh, I love this question, sir. I mean, why? Because though we had a very large interaction with the policymakers and we have been contributing time and again, certain things are not in our control. But as we projected here that we expect that to roll out at least this year, and there is a reason for that as well. I mean, last month we had given some more inputs, okay, and we presume that this is a meeting going to happen very soon, maybe at some secondary level or a level below that. But there is a movement happening, and India also wants this to be implemented the earliest. So 2022 is the time we expect things should be out, sir. But precisely, if you ask me the dates, we don't have the dates with us.
There's the quarter also, right? Like which quarter?
I would say the earlier the better, but if it is not coming, sir, it's an advantage for all of us here because we can prepare ourselves. I'm pretty sure none of us has prepared to that level. Only for those exporting to Europe, maybe having some quality data with them, but the rest need to pull up the socks. So it's a time given to us indirectly. Come on, guys, you do all those, and we are promoting and tutoring and advising, carrying out webinars almost free of cost, and you will be requiring all these things. Yeah, and the most important case there is you need to prepare a roadmap for your own business. I mean, how do you know in your warehouse you have got a inventory of a larger case? Some may be compatible, some may not be compatible. And because now this ICMSR is also going to club the existing rules of the chemical accident preparation and also the manufacture and storage of hazardous waste, you need to be more careful that whether you are still having those things in your premises and what is your obligation within that. And also you should see that whether you require a notification real sense or not, because many of the raw material is being supplied by somebody upline, right? And you may be using those things. And now you may say, okay, I'm buying from a big giant company, so they will be doing it, fair enough. But suppose you buy from me a smaller company, and बोले वो तो करने वाला नहीं है, तो आपको करना पड़ेगा फिर. तो या तो आप उनको समझाओ भाई तुम कर लो, नहीं तो खुद करो.
But now, in our case, like, do we have to do the registration or the manufacturer has to do it?
If it is outside guy, yeah, and if you're first in the business in India, I mean, you're importing their products in India, and if they're exclusively giving it to you in India, then you better do it.
Okay.
In that case, he can't sell to anybody else.
If not?
If he can do it by hiring us, and then you can also buy and somebody else also can buy from you.
Okay. And the second question is on the BIS. Like some chemicals, as you said, they are in the mandatory list. If they are already, if the manufacturer has got the license for that,
yeah,
then will it come in the purview of
Exactly. That's again a fantastic question. Complying with ICMS does not mean you're free from not doing the compliance towards BIS. Both are separate.
Both are separate.
Yeah.
That has to be
Yeah.
managed separately
Yeah.
or...
The BIS stands more with the quality side, and there is you're going to use the BIS logo on that, right? And every COA will be endorsed.
Yeah.
So that's on the quality aspect of it, and this side it is the safety and the environment aspect of it. So both are different. Both need to be complied.
Okay. And the last one, as you said, that most of the details will be uploaded online. There will be portal for that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's in process. So how about the physical submission if it is there? Where it has to be what's the address or
Yeah.
where it has to be contacted?
So we saw a couple of authorities on the board, right? There were people who were in the what we call the steering committees. There are people from the risk assessment committees, and there are people from the scientific committees. And our government has got no lacuna of people. I mean, they've got various offices across each and every districts, right? So maybe they will have some sort of a collection system, maybe estate-wise or state-wise. But we strongly believe that the first option they will be choosing will be the uploading facility, because that's simpler a case than handling the hard copies. And again, the most important thing is of the confidentiality of the document submitted, because I will not want my document to go into wrong hands, right? The same would be your case. So
True.
I also personally feel that it's going to be with the in the soft line than the hard copies.
Okay. Fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
What are the cost implications for a small and medium scale company?
Absolutely right, sir. This is the notification fee, right? India has been promoting industries, those who are exporting. Huh? So there are the ChemExpo and then there is an MAI scheme happening, and so people who are exporting to other countries do get that benefit and they do that. But when it comes to our own country, right, something has to be shelled out to make our country better. I mean, the fees may be debatable. I'm no one to say anything on that. But if something comes for free, it's not been respected. So there is going to be some implications, but it's something which the industry can take it. Strongly. I have that gut feeling. It's not something which they cannot afford to take it forward for business to happen in the country. And this also sees that the overseas suppliers also pay a similar amount when they do business into our country. A great question. There's going to be debates. Even these numbers has come out with a lot of deliberations within the policymakers. So it's assumed that, and a lot of inputs has also gone from the industries for that matter. It's not an arbitrary some numbers considered as on today, and so this may be the figure, or something may be reduced. We're not pretty sure about it, but the country can take it strongly. I do believe that.
Thank you, Dr. Nair.